All right, everyone. So glad you're here. I wanted to put this little explainer together for our book club because, well, something kind of crazy happened to me the other day. It completely rewired my brain about a show I know a lot of us loved and then, well, learned to really, really hate. I'm talking, of course, about Lost. What started as just this random thought has blossomed into this whole new way of seeing the entire series, and I had to walk you all through it.
Okay, let's just be real for a second. This quote right here, this was me. For years, I was one of those people. I felt so completely betrayed by the finale of Lost. You know, we all invested hundreds of hours into this beautiful, complicated, fascinating world, only to feel like the rug was just yanked out from under us. I'm guessing a few of you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was confusing, it was frustrating, and for the longest time, I just wrote it off as terrible writing.
And, it's no wonder we were all so lost ourselves. The show left so many loose ends dangling. That finale seemed to drop this really confusing afterlife idea on us at the last minute, which made so many people think they were dead the whole time, which, by the way, the creators have said over and over is not true. On top of that, you have the Dharma Initiative, Walt's weird powers, the smoke monster. I mean, the list goes on. And all this was happening while the show was doing this hard pivot from sci-fi to something that felt more like a story about faith. It was a lot.
So there I was for more than a decade, firmly in the I hated the ending camp. And then, just the other day, I was watching a movie, and you're gonna laugh. It was the Paul Rudd comedy This Is 40. And a character makes this tiny offhand comment about Lost. But for some reason, hearing it this time, after all these years of kind of getting into different philosophies, something just clicked. I'm not kidding, it was like a lightning bolt. And it made me question everything I thought I knew about the show.
This was the question that just exploded in my brain. What if we were all watching the show through the completely wrong lens? We were all looking for clues, right? For scientific explanations, for some big mystery to be solved. But what if the entire point of the island, the crash, all of it, what if it wasn't about answering what happened, but was about helping these characters finally resolve their deepest, most unfinished business?
Okay, so let's get into it. To really wrap our heads around this new perspective, we need two big ideas. The first one is a concept we've all heard of, but maybe not quite in this way: karma. First thing, let's just throw out the way we usually think about karma. Forget the whole good and bad karma thing, like some big cosmic scoreboard in the sky. Instead, think of it as just incompletion. It's the baggage, the patterns you're stuck in, the stuff you haven't dealt with yet. It's like you've been dealt a hand of cards, and you can't leave the table until you've played them all.
And this analogy of a card game, it's just perfect for this. So you're in the game, and the only goal is to get rid of your cards, your karma. But here's the absolute most important rule. You can't win by just passing your turn. You can't sit back and hope it all just goes away. You have to engage. You have to make a move, take a risk, call someone's bluff. You have to play the game if you ever want to finish it.
All right, so that's piece number one. Karma is a game you have to actively play. The second key to unlocking all this is about the game board itself, the very nature of reality.
This idea that our reality might not be what it seems, that it could be a simulation, it isn't some newfangled idea. We see it all the time in modern pop culture, like in The Matrix. But what's wild is that it's also a deeply, profoundly ancient idea. In Hindu philosophy, for instance, it's called Vishnu's dream, this concept that the whole universe is basically a shared divine dream. Both of them, the ancient and the modern, are getting at the same thing, that reality can be a construct, a field designed for a purpose.
So now for the fun part. Let's see what happens when we put these two big pieces together. When we take this idea of karma as unfinished business and reality as a potential simulation, and we apply them directly to the world of Lost, this is where the whole show just transforms.
This is the heart of it, right here. We all thought we were watching a mystery show, a sci-fi thriller. But what if it was actually a samsara show? Now, samsara is this Eastern concept of the endless cycle of death and rebirth, a cycle that's driven by, you guessed it, unresolved karma. The show was never about the physics of the island, it was always about the metaphysics of the soul. So, the island, it's not just a physical place, it's a simulation, a purpose-built reality. I mean, think of it like a karmic rehab facility, seriously. And all the bizarre stuff, the time travel, the hatch, the smoke monster, they weren't just random weird plot devices, they were tools. Tools inside the simulation, specifically designed to force these poor lost souls to finally confront the very issues, the very cards they could never get rid of in their lives before.
And when you start looking at the characters this way, it's uncanny how perfectly tailored this simulation was. I mean, take Jack, a man absolutely defined by his need to be in control. So where does he end up? In a situation where he's forced to lead, but ultimately has to learn to let go. Or Sawyer, who builds his entire personality around one single act of revenge. He gets trapped in a place where the only way to survive is through community and trust. And then there's Locke, a man desperate for some kind of faith, and he lands on an island that demands it from him at every turn. The island gave every single one of them the exact test they needed to finally play their hand.
Okay, so with this new framework in mind, the island as this karma-burning simulator, let's go back. Let's go back to that finale, the one that broke all of our brains, and see if maybe, just maybe, it looks a little different now. The flash sideways in that last season, that was the biggest source of confusion, right? But it wasn't purgatory. It's much closer to a concept from Tibetan Buddhism called the bardo, an in-between state after death. It's like a shared, timeless, dream world where these souls could gather, and this is key, no matter when they actually died, so they could finish their journey together. This quote from the spiritual teacher Ram Dass, for me, is the emotional key that just unlocks the whole show. We are all just walking each other home. The point was never about individual survival. It wasn't about one person winning and getting off the island. The point was that their karmic paths were so deeply tangled up that they couldn't move on alone. They were spiritually assigned to each other. They literally had to walk each other home.
And that brings us to the church, the scene that felt like such a lazy, confusing cop-out. But through this lens, it looks like something unbelievably profound. It's a symbol of moksha, which is a word for liberation or spiritual freedom. They're not in a church to be judged or to go to a Christian heaven. They're there because they finally did it. They completed their karmic circle. They played their hands, they resolved their debts to each other, and now, finally, they're free to move on, together.
So the whole thing, the big takeaway is this. We were all asking the wrong questions. The show was never going to give us a neat scientific explanation for the polar bear because the story wasn't about the what. It was always about the who. Just like Jack's dad says in that final scene, the most important part of their lives was the time they spent with these people, the relationships. That was the whole point all along. So I'll just leave you with this thought to get our discussion started. Maybe the show's creators intended every single bit of this, or maybe they didn't. But does a story's real meaning only come from what the author intended, or does it also come from the profound, coherent, and beautiful truths that we can find inside of it for ourselves? Anyway, let's talk about it.